Next question. Can you talk about different squat variation benefits and why you would or wouldn't choose a specific type of squat?
Okay, I love the squat question. There's so many different things that we could talk about here, but I'm curious on your take. Like, let's talk about squat variations. Why we would or why we wouldn't make a specific choice.
Man, it's interesting someone's actually thinking about that because I feel like so many people just assume back squat, barbell back squat. That's walking to the gym. I haven't been in the gym for 2 years and I'm still going to go barbell back squat. So, I mean, there's lots of different reasons from where your training status, where your history, even to your morphology, things like that, like how your body's set up. But they have different benefits. They work you in different ways. Some are more mechanically advantageous to get into an easier position for a squat. Like a back squat, it is hard for a lot of people to get into. There's a lot going on. So
shoulder mobility, right?
A lot of shoulder mobility, a lot of hip mobility, a lot of different mechanics where ankle, hip, everything. But something like maybe like a dumbbell goblet squat or a Zercher squat for a lot of people is a little bit more mechanically advantageous. So that's kind of the first thing to think of from a broad topic. So,
yeah, I think the question is like, why are you asking? Are you bored?
Yeah.
Are you like, you feel like you have a deficiency somewhere in your squat?
Do back squats just not feel good for you?
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Which is the thing for me.
Yeah.
You know, like loading a bar on my back anymore is just not something I choose to do.
Yeah.
Like there's a million other variations I could choose. I'm going to squat.
Yeah.
Just how am I going to do it, right? So, and maybe that's the impetus for for this question as well. So, in terms of like talk about the different squat variations, you just mentioned a few of them. So it's like one, like squat is a squat. Let's define it as that.
Yeah,
squat is a squat. Feet shoulder-ish width apart, knees tracking over the second and
over your tibias and your toes.
Right, your second and third digits there on your toes on toes. Let's assume knees are in line with hips, and we're able to maintain that neutral posture to some degree, and whatever else. Right. Again, if we start going down that rabbit hole, things can change dramatically.
Yeah.
But let's just assume that's how we're squatting. So, what are some of the different variations, and how would they benefit or not benefit you? So, I think the first question is like, can you do what we just said? Because if you're
body weight, you mean?
Right. There you go. Yeah. With body weight, like, can you do what we just very simply described? Well, can you do it repeatedly? Can you do it with confidence? Again, is it repeatable? And can you do it with quality, right? Time in or day in and day out. Can you do 3 sets of 20 of those? No problem. Great.
Yeah.
So then the next thing is we're trying to challenge you with load. How would we challenge you with load? Well, if you, with regard to the different variations, you mentioned a few there, like barbell back squat versus like Zercher or goblet. I think you said goblet.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So those are basically how are we going to load the squat now? So really, that doesn't matter. It's still a squat pattern, right? When we look at it, it only matters if we are trying to drive some type of a different stimulus, or the person might have a limitation to where loading it in another way might be challenging for them or contradictory.
Yeah.
So let's look at it maybe this way. You look at kind of back loaded versus front loaded. So when we're looking at goblet or Zercher squats, we're talking about a front-loaded squat, right? Great alternative for somebody who can't get into maybe a front squat position with the barbell, right? Because they lack mobility with maybe thoracic spine, maybe in the hips, maybe it's in their, in their shoulders, wrists, and they can't really get there. And the Zercher and the goblet are great ways to train that movement pattern, that being a squat, from a front-loaded position. Another one might be like just a front-racked dumbbell or kettlebell type of thing. Again, front-loaded. What are the advantages? Why would I choose a front-loaded over a back-loaded? Well, I just mentioned one. Maybe it's a limitation.
Yeah.
But there's other reasons too.
What if you notice that generally for most people that feels easier is because it has an impact on your center of mass. And a lot of people don't. That's where where's the weight distributed? Where's it placed? That's what's going to change the biomechanics of your joints moving through space, right? Your structures moving through space. So when you change your center of mass to more out in front of you, it literally almost for some people can give you more squat depth because it's kind of counterbalancing your trunk.
100%.
It's allowing you to get into a deeper, more advantageous position, but it's still getting to this deep knee bending, hip bending, flex position. variation. So that's the biggest thing, is in all these different variants, change the center of mass of the movement as you go through it. So which can change what tissue you're loading more, but also can help you with some limitations if you have some limitations in specific joints that are involved in the mechanic of a squat. So
yeah, I think it's important. Like, why would I choose one over the other? Well, part of the thing is like, where am I on my journey and what is the goal? And so if somebody obviously is training for a powerlifting meet, right, and they have to back squat, like, we're going to do a lot of back squatting.
Yes,
right? It doesn't mean we're not going to do any Zercher squatting or goblet squatting or any other variation for that matter. But I am going to do that because that is what I need to do to perform. Something to talk about here is like, if I'm starting with somebody they're fairly new, the competitive athlete is one thing, right? Yeah. But somebody that's new or is just trying to continue to maintain a progression in their strength, their muscle building, their quality of movement, and we can even get into like power and things like that. As you get further into those domains. My point being, like, I like to introduce all different types of squat variations to people up front. I like to teach them right from the get-go, like, it's just a squat. We're going to do it this way today, right? And load them differently. It teaches them and their body how to move through that same pattern with loaded in a different way.
Yeah, I was going to say coordinated balance, right? So you're challenging them proprioceptively from a balance perspective.